PA unelected peer Adonis is using blocking tactics yet on the issue of leaving the EU. At least peers are no more in tune with the electorate than if they had been plucked at random to sit on the red benches. Westminster insiders reckon that at least 8 out of 10 of the 800 or so members of the upper house voted Remain in the 2016 EU referendum, compared with a 52% to 48% split in favour of Leave among voters. The anti-Brexit majority will be in full cry when the Gilded Chamber hosts 2 days of debate on the second reading of Theresa May's EU withdrawal bill, starting on Tuesday. More than 170 peers had put down the names to speak in the debate by last night. The Lords is stuffed full of former European commissioners on fat Brussels pensions, ex-foreign secretaries and all the other idiots that got us to where we are now. It's not going to be jolly, one Eurosceptic peer told me. Lord Adonis, an obscure junior minister in the last Labour government, has emerged as the standard-bearer of the hardline Brussels fanatics determined to use the legislation's passage through the upper house as a chance to try to wreck the government's Brexit plans. Government frontbenchers are braced for another grueling campaign, particularly when the bill begins the 5-week committee stage starting later this month, when dozens of amendments will be proposed, softened only by the less confrontational discourse traditional among peers. We don't have a majority in the Lords, one Tory source told me. There are likely to be a few late nights as we get into the nitty-gritty. Ministers expect some trouble from pro-Remain Tory peers, with Baroness Wheatcroft and former Pensions Minister Baroness Altman likely to be prominent among those critical of the government's approach to Brexit. They are also watching to see which way Lords will sway. Lord Panic, who represented the lead claimant in the Supreme Court case about whether the Prime Minister had the legal power to trigger the EU's Article 50 exit clause without parliamentary approval, is also expected to be a crucial figure. Yet Tory insiders are increasingly confident that the bill will emerge from the Lords largely unscathed. Lord Adonis' shrill attacks on Brexiteers and attempts at procedural skulduggery, including a proposal this week to try to double the amount of time the Lord spends scrutinising the bill, are understood to be alienating many peers. 1. Described his activities as poisonous. In one recent outburst on Twitter, Lord Adonis condemned Wolverhampton as the political base of Enoch Powell in the 60s under huge Leave majority. Such metropolitan sneering at the population beyond London is seen by some more sensible peers as the sort of posturing that could provoke a public backlash against the unelected upper house. A lot of peers aren't interested in his way of behaving, said the Tory source in the Lords. This place works on building relationships of trust and consensus. Ministers suspect most peers realise that a constitutional showdown with the Commons can only end with drastic measures such as flooding the upper house with Brexit-backing peers, sweeping reform or even abolition. They understand that taking on the elected chamber would be an existential threat to the Lords, the Tory source added. Lord Adonis and his dwindling band of hardline Remainers will be preparing some highly technical arguments and wheezes this weekend to deploy. Yet for all the scheming, the coming weeks in the House of Lords look set to mark their hopeless last stand. Blank underscore blank underscore blank underscore blank underscore blank underscore path. A crunch debate on the renewal and restoration of Parliament will happen next week. Tales of sparking plug sockets, crumbling gargoyles and unflushable lavatories will abound next week when the Commons holds a crunch debate on the renewal and restoration of Parliament. MPs have to choose between a series of options for renovating the Palace of Westminster that could leave the taxpayer with a bill of up to £7 billion. MPs overwhelmingly agree that the magnificent neo-Gothic complex, largely built in the mid-19th century and extensively repaired following Second World War bomb damage, is urgently in need of major work. Its status as a UNESCO World Heritage site means there is little room for cutting costs on the project. Decaying stonework needs to be cleaned and repaired, the electrics and plumbing overhauled and roof tiles replaced. The Elizabeth Tower, home to the famous Big Ben Bell, is already encased in scaffolding, much to the disappointment of visiting tourists. Theresa May is understood to be nervous that the spiralling costs of the renovation will test the patience of voters at a time when the NHS and other public services are under strain. Treasury officials are understood to share her misgivings. Public patience about the cost is likely to be further stretched by the determination of some MPs and parliamentary officials to turn the palace into a visitor attraction. A mystery challenge game was staged in Parliament's ancient Westminster Hall during the winter recess, and the Commons Administration Committee has discussed attempting to win a Michelin star gourmet award for dining facilities open to members of the public. Supporters of such gimmicks say they bring in cash for parliamentary funds that help reduce the overall public subsidy for running the building, yet that approach risks causing confusion about the building's purpose. It may add backing to the argument that MPs should quit Westminster permanently for a new, modern building and leave the heritage industry to take over the site. If they want taxpayers' cash spent on the building, MPs need to make sure the renovation plan focuses on doing what is necessary to preserve a vital symbol of British democracy rather than turning it into a visitor attraction.